Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, March the 8th edition of Trent Hills Council. I'll call the meeting to order at 9:31 a.m. This council meeting will be conducted in person, and members of council will be present in the council chambers. At this time, in-person attendance by members of the public is not permitted. The meeting will be live streamed on the municipality's meeting portal and YouTube channel. First up is the adoption of the agenda. Be resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of March the 8th, 2022 be received and adopted. A mover and seconder, please. Moved by Ken, seconded by Jean. All in favor? Carried. It was so much fun to say that and not have to say, would you call the question? Is there any disclosure of interest? The nature thereof? Seeing none, if something should arise, please advise the clerk. We're now at the minutes of council and advisory bodies. Minutes of the council meeting held on February the 22nd, 2022. Be resolved that the minutes of the council meeting held on February the 22nd, 2022 be received and adopted as presented. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Rick, seconded by Rose. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're at now at deputations. We have Eric Hanna, Chief Executive Officer, and Kevin Huestis, Chair of the Campbellford Memorial Hospital, the redevelopment of Campbellford Memorial Hospital. And I will turn it over to Eva to cue up the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, would you like us to start? I'll just start talking while we get that fired up. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of the council. Congratulations to you on being back in the chambers there, and thanks for having us here today. I'm just going to say a brief introduction here before I hand it over to our CEO to walk you through the slides. But as we all know, it's been a tough 2 years for our hospital and for our staff. But what we're here to talk to you about today is something very positive, very exciting, and an opportunity for our community. And that is we want to update you on our recent efforts to obtain a planning grant for a new hospital for Campbellford, for Trent Hills, and for our neighboring municipalities that use our hospital routinely. I just want to say that, as a volunteer board member, one of the things I've sort of noticed over the years is there's a perception in the community that, we are going to get a new hospital. It's just inevitable. We have to be patient, go through the process. But what I've learned being on the hospital board is that there is no guarantee of that happening. There's no certainty. I think there's something like 35 to 40 applications in for new redeveloped hospitals with the Ministry of Health right now, and we're one of them. So I think we believe we're a very worthy candidate. It's a very logical choice, but it's going to take some effort and some activity on our part to make it happen, as we know. A number of people have been working on this for many years, but there's a big change right now. I think there's an urgency right now and an opportunity. And a threat, really, too, if you want to look at it that way, but definitely an urgency. And it's really founded on three things. One is the patient experience. The pandemic has shone a light on the challenges that we face with our current facility. There's a long list, but at the top of the list would be infection control, which obviously was an issue before the pandemic, but the pandemic has accelerated that problem. And even though hopefully the pandemic is winding down here, we are now in a pandemic world, and that's not going to change for hospital workers, for hospital facilities. So the problems we had a few years ago in terms of infection control and lots of other things are exponentially worse now because of what we've gone through in the last 2 years. The second urgency is the fact that our facility is on life support. The latest estimate was it requires $25 million of upgrades just to get to a basic minimum acceptable standard. And that's probably not including inflation. So, that doesn't seem like a really good investment for our community or for the province of Ontario. And the final one, in terms of urgency, is really a positive thing. And that's an opportunity for us to partner with Burnbrae Gardens. They have to, they're mandated to redevelop their facility. We want them to do that in Campbellford with, co-locating with the hospital as a campus of care model. But in order for us to be able to do that, we need a plan grant now in order to keep up with their pace. So that's kind of the gist of it. The icing on the cake, if you will, I think has been in the past few months, this fall, we had a new CEO join us, and that's Eric Hanna. He brings 35 years of experience in healthcare. He's been there, done that, redeveloped facilities, and has brought just an unbelievable amount of energy and knowledge to and leadership to our group. And with that, I'll turn it over to Eric to take you through the rest of the presentation today.
Thanks, Kevin, and good morning, members of council. It's great to meet many of you virtually, and I look forward to maybe giving another update just on regular hospital operations at a future council meeting. As Kevin said, I joined CMH back at the end of November. I was happily enjoying retirement life up at Belmont Lake. And got a call from Kevin that said we would really appreciate it if you maybe come out of retirement and give us some help. And a couple of things that they were interested in me helping them out with was the redevelopment. I had previously retired as the CEO of Arnprior Regional Health, and I was in charge of many things up there, one of which was building a new nursing home. And my claim to fame there was being able to convince the government that they needed to expand the number of licenses in Arnprior, going from 60 to 96 beds. And we went from up to that without the ministry having any approval for any additional licenses. So I view that as a strength of mine and something that Kevin and the board chair was looking at having. How can I continue to create a win-win situation for the government, the community, and for the hospital? I also, people will say, well, why did you come back to Campbellford? A little bit of the story on that. My wife's grandfather was a physician. He graduated from Queen's University in 1936, and his first place of practicing medicine was in Campbellford. And when he came to Campbellford, he opened up the first hospital in 1937. So it's part of the family. I've got a strong passion for this organization and want to make sure that it remains successful. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes just going through a couple of slides, expanding a little bit on what Kevin had said. And then at the end, Your Worship or members of council, happy to take questions in on some of the specifics of what I've got to show you. So next slide, please. Kevin mentioned these three reasons why we want to move ahead right now. And I'm going to go into a little bit more details on all three of these. Next slide, please. The first one, and is, as Kevin said, we've now determined what the implications are of having a building and where our medical beds are right now. The building that opened up in 1952. And what you find then is that the facility then doesn't have the structures and or space that you would typically have in today's environment. So for example, the most recent bout of COVID, and we're just out of the outbreak right now, that most recent outbreak in COVID happened in our special care unit, and it was transmitted from one patient to another one. And one of the reasons why is these patients are not 6 feet apart. You wouldn't have a special care unit as we've got it currently designed right now. The other thing that happens as well is we just don't have enough private rooms right now. And if you are diagnosed as having COVID, or if you're waiting for the results of COVID, we put you into a private room. We don't have enough private rooms. So what it means then is that we have to take a semi-private room where you have two people and take one person out of there. And then instead of having 34 beds, we keep on dropping down. And so you might only have 28 beds. The actual setup of that unit and the ability to shut doors and have appropriate air exchanges and negative pressure rooms, it was so bad back in December that public health came through and shut us down and said, you cannot admit to the hospital anymore. because you just don't have the appropriate environment. That's not a safe condition, and it's happened again to us again, and that restriction of being in COVID outbreak just came off on Friday. So that's not something that we want to be talking about in our community and say, we got a great emergency department, but if you need to be admitted, you can't be admitted to the hospital because it's no longer allowing you to admit to the hospital. Next slide, please. The ability for the campus of care. And so this is an idea then, is that we would go out to look to procure about 30 acres of land. And on this land, we would look to have the nursing home locate as well as the hospital. We would maybe have spaces for other healthcare providers. And one of the benefits of doing that is that if you're looking at developing a site, we wouldn't necessarily then as a hospital have to be required to pay for all the site services. We could share it with another organization. We could as well look at sharing health human resources. Our number one challenge right now in healthcare today is not necessarily funding, it's the availability to recruit and retain health human resources. And if we were able to share more human resources between two different sites because you're on the same physical premises, maybe that would help us to address that. It would certainly maybe come in to help us and look at trying to recruit physicians to the community as well, nurses, personal support workers, etc. What I've seen as well when I worked in ARM prior was the ability to be able to share and develop new programs. And in fact, it was interesting when Kevin had mentioned that we were having discussions with the ministry. We've actually had a conversation with the Minister of Health, Christine Elliott, and she even said to us that if you had the hospital and the nursing home on the same premise, then what I would envision happening is that you could do dialysis for residents of your nursing home. So it creates that ability to provide more care closer to home or in this community when you actually physically co-locate together. Next slide, please. The infrastructure. So as Kevin said, we continue to do all sorts of studies to find out which parts of our building are deteriorating. And as you can see, these are the types that are there. And what's going on today then is we are in the process right now of updating a generator. That generator is 35 years old, and as a manager of plant operations said, it's broken more often than it actually is available to be operating. But one of the things, though, that's happening right now is that we had that project come in at a budget of about $3.1 million to upgrade the generator and the electrical distribution panel. That project, as of yesterday morning, has now gone up by 300%. And so the concern then is to say, as Kevin's saying, why would we want to put $30 million into a facility that primarily was built in 1952? And on top of that, where are we going to get the $24 million or so that's required to do these upgrades? The hospital has access to special capital funds that are available. In the last couple of years, we may receive $1 to $2 million a year in special requests. As you can see, it's going to take us 20 years before we get the facility upgraded to what it needs to be. Next slide, please. So benefits to our community. I'm just going to summarize a few things in the next slide. The campus of care, as I said, I've had this personal experience. This facility that is the Burnbrae and Omni Homes that operates it, we've had several discussions, and this has been a long-standing relationship with this organization. They have confirmed that they do need to rebuild by June 2025, or they will lose their license. They are waiting right now approval of the Ministry of Long-Term Care to saying you can go ahead and rebuild your build up to 128-bed facility. I believe that will happen before the election because the government doesn't want to see a facility not redevelop it, or that would mean then their 43 beds would close as of June 2025 and they wouldn't be able to operate after that period of time. They are going to have to go out and identify where the land needs to be. If they go out and they identify 5 acres of land, which is what they need, and they don't do it on the same campus of care with us, we've lost all that ability to do the synergies. We have had several meetings with this organization right now, and I can say as well that as far as the location, we have identified up to 4 sites. and we've been working with your Director of Planning, Jim Peters, and thank you very much, Jim, and your team. You have given us an awful lot of insight into various sites that are around the community where we could develop a health campus. And we have not yet finalized the site yet, but we have identified up to 5. Some of them are a little bit more advantageous in terms of the locations and site conditions, but we're well on our way thanks to the support of the town in helping us move that forward. I think it's also important as well that when we come to look at this co-location, one of the things that you would ask is to say, you know, what would happen? Well, would they be physically located together, i.e. the hospital and the nursing home would be side by side? Potentially. And one thing you might wish to do is to say, why would you build 2 kitchens? For example, why can't you just build one and build that one big enough? If you're building a kitchen big enough for 128 residents, why can't you just build another big enough for another 50? It's certainly an awful lot more cost effective to build 1 kitchen than it would be for designing 2. But we need to be able to go to this long-term care facility and saying, when you're designing this, build it in a fashion that will allow us to share these types of services as we go forward. Next slide, please. I think as well, and I'm surprised of the facility condition here, and then some of you who have either seen family members who are here or have been admitted yourself. It's more than embarrassing to walk down the second floor here where the 34 beds are, and we have 2 semi-private rooms, so that's a room where 2 patients are in there. None of them have a bathroom the way they were designed back in 1952. And that's unheard of right now, to say that in order for you to use a bathroom, you need to go out and walk down the hallway. The special care unit, as I mentioned as well, doesn't have enough space in it for segregation. It doesn't allow you to go in and use the bedside computer terminals, etc. We talked as well about a number of these air exchanges down below at the bottom where it talks about the need to upgrade air filters, etc., and negative pressure rooms. This week, we have Train in here doing a comprehensive air exchange study, an air quality study to help us identify what we need to do to address these. You may have heard, for example, that you can go out and buy portable HEPA filters. We did that. We went out and bought approximately 30 portable HEPA filters to take microns out of the air. Unfortunately, when we came to plug some of them into the patient rooms, there weren't enough plugs, let alone the availability of the amperage in order to allow us to plug in portable air exchangers. Next slide, please. I think as well, what on the cost-effective solutions, the question then is we're talking about is saying, why would you put in $25 million into this facility that is built in 1950s? It doesn't seem to make much economic sense. We are going to have to grow as well. We've done the population projections right now, and it's a population growth of, for example, people in the age of 20 to 40 doesn't necessarily drive your inpatients, like your medical beds. It's the aging population. And when you consider the aging population of Trent Hills and our service area, we expect to see that the emergency department will increase by 33%. The emergency department, which opened up in 1980s, where it's not big, it was not big enough to accommodate 33%. The same type of thing on the inpatient side as well. So yes, we have some people who are in the hospital that probably should be in a nursing home, and we're waiting for that to be addressed. And so we will see a reduced demand for inpatients that way. But the overall growth in population and the aging population will see a need of us increasing by 36%. So from 34 beds up to close to 50 beds. Next slide. This is the last one that I think is important as well. Just to reiterate this campus of care, there are close to 36 organizations across our province right now that have campus of care. We have something very similar to that right now. They'll have the hospital, we have the lodge, We have community mental health programs. Across the street is the family health team, the pharmacy department, et cetera. It'd be great to be able to say that that's the beginning of a campus of care. Unfortunately, our entire site is completely landlocked. And so we don't have that ability to add even more services to be able to do further integration. And as I said before, going out and trying to recruit, for example, a half-time physiotherapist or a part-time pharmacist, et cetera, is extremely difficult. And if you're able then to jointly recruit and retain staff members by offering a full-time position through this shared campus of care model, I think it'll help us out immensely moving forward. I think as well, the capital costs, we were quite confident that they will become significantly less if we build this campus of care as well. And certainly that's the sense in talking to our long-term care provider partner as well. And next slide. So I think that was the end of the presentation. I guess, Kevin, I thought maybe what we probably should do is just let people know, where we're at. We submitted the application close to 7 years ago, and that was the first one. It's gone back and forth in several iterations. The most recent correspondence that we had from the ministry was in the summertime of 2021. There were a number of questions that came out from that. We provided the answers to all those questions, and they have all been satisfactorily addressed by the ministry, i.e. there are no further questions that came back. So from the ministry's perspective, we have submitted enough information which would allow us to proceed to what we refer to as a planning grant to do more detailed operations. We have not received that approval yet of the planning grant. And therefore, we have had, with David Piccini's help, a meeting with the Minister of Health and re-emphasized how important this was. And we've also, though, as well, started to create a stronger advocacy campaign. And so we appreciate your counsel here of setting a letter of support in. We have sent in probably 15 letters of support that have come from various area municipalities, a number of businesses as well. And last but not least, we are now starting to engage community patients, community leaders, et cetera, in making sure that their voices are well known as well. As Kevin said, it's a competitive field out there trying to secure limited funds. And we need to demonstrate that our community is 110% behind this redevelopment. Mr. Mayor, that would conclude mine. I don't know, Kevin, if you have any last comments or not, and then maybe we could open up for questions if there are any.
No, I just think that a great job, Eric. Thank you very much. And our MPP, David Piccini, has been a great champion, but thanks to Eric's tireless sort of approach here, he and I have also met with all the neighboring MPPs. We've met with all of the hospital leaders of our 5 hospitals that surround us, and everybody fully supports going forward with this initiative. It just makes so much sense. And we are, by the advisors and the people who seem to have been through this before, we're being told that, the community does need to step up and show engagement in it and show a passion and a willingness to sort of make this happen. So that's kind of our next step here. And we just want to make sure everybody was aware of that as well, that hopefully we'll be seeing social media posts and those kinds of things over the next few months to just show how much this community values our hospital and recognizes this opportunity that we have to at least get a planning grant so we can keep this thing going.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Thanks, Eric, for your presentation. I'll open it up to council if you have any questions. We'll start with Councillor Braheny.
Mr. Mayor, this isn't probably a question, it's more of a comment. Having a hospital in Campbellford has been a long struggle for a long time. I think I'm maybe the oldest one in the room here, and I stand corrected. I think the sod was broken in 1949 to build that hospital, and it hit upon hard times, and about 2 years into it, it was mothballed, and nothing was happening, and then it finally did open in 1953, and I'm proud to say that my mother was a registered nurse and was one of the first nurses on staff at that time. So I've got a long, committed history with hospital, having used it a few times myself, but I understand how important it is in our community for the health benefit, the employment benefit, and I certainly recognize that it's a struggle to get it through Queen's Park, as was the first one. So, but I'm committed to work with David Bacchini, and hopefully we can get some progress on the funding report. Thank you.
Thanks, Gene. Councillor Redden?
Thank you. Do I need to push this? Push something. Gene needs to push something.
There we go. We're getting there.
We're new at this. New hands, new times. Gene, I know you're older than I am, but I think we've been around here almost as long in terms of dealing with the hospital, so I won't mention either of our ages, but definitely the hospital has played a really key role in my time in Campbellford. And I'm going to give a little plug because I think that you gentlemen, I've been in your chairs and your positions in the past, and I think that what we need to do is as you're doing, come back to the community and remind them of the importance of the role the hospital plays. And I have a little book that I dug out last night. I don't know if individuals have seen it. This council should certainly have it. But it is the history of the first 50 years of the hospital as it exists. And it actually shocked me a little bit because it's almost like deja vu all over again. I recall in 1997 sitting with the then chair of the board. I was vice chair at the time, and Dick Quinnell, who is the CEO, president, and pitching our pitch to the province at the time. They were restructuring everybody, not just hospitals, but municipalities and anything else they could find. And at that point, we were just worried that they would leave us alone and who they were going to team us up with. And they didn't. They left us alone. They saw us as a very special community with a special hospital and something that could stand alone and do its thing and serve individuals well and the community. And I think that we need to continue making that pitch that we're not we're in a very special location geographically that serves the area well, and so that what their task now is to improve what we've got and build on what's been there from the past. I just, on a side note, just want to say that my husband was in hospital during your COVID outbreak. And I will say his treatment was second to none. I had no qualms leaving him there. I didn't know all the nurses. They're much younger now. And I did know a couple of individuals there. But from the time we got to the door until the time he walked back out, I can't say that there was anything that I could see that I thought had been done wrong. And I really commend you and thank you for that. And I think there are many in this community who are very silent about that and possibly should say it more often. It's a struggle, and I know it's a struggle with what's taking place here. Individuals are more demanding. The community wants more of everyone. And municipally, we see that, and I'm sure you do as well. So I detect a bit of a note of concern and worry and so on in some of the things you're saying. And I think just know that there's hundreds and perhaps thousands of individuals that visit that hospital every year that are behind you and pushing you from behind to lead them on to a new one. I do have a couple of questions about, and you did answer it when you spoke about Omni, in terms of a public and private partnership in this. We initiated the campus effect years ago when we started purchasing and moving houses, and if some people remember, we took down houses and moved them through town and took them out to Seymour. In other cases, we bought them and repurposed them. So I understand your need for more space. What will become then of what the current campus is? What's your thought of that? What parts are you relocating? In particular, will the physician's offices in that building change in how it's set up, or will you be looking for new partners on your new campus?
I think that's, I guess, if you will, a TBD right now. We know that there will be a need for additional physicians as the community continues to grow. And we also know as well that that there are other health service providers that are looking for space as well. And so all that sort of detailed plan hasn't happened yet. People have said, what do you think will happen here with the hospital? As I said, it's not going to be viable to keep it running post us moving out of here. Just the cost of operations will probably mean that it would need to be potentially demolished or at least converted into some other type of use. But we haven't spent an awful lot of time looking at that just yet. I think as well, we've also know as well that, and many of you are familiar with this, the lodge that is next door to us has a 7-year wait to get in. And so there's going to be some work that's being done with those folks and working with the county and trying to say the types of accommodations can we look at as well. So a sort of a site plan for this area as well as the new one, I think would be part of the next steps to determine what would go where and when.
Okay, and thank you. Thank you for that. And just a follow-up question with respect to the lodge, was there any thought of developing out to the west on the property? At one point, we had discussed perhaps a nursing home. Would the lodge then perhaps be developed out onto that land, or is that still to be determined?
To the west at the high school field?
Yeah, well, it'd be there was property at one point where there were plans to extend out to the west of the building and have a nursing home component on there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, Kevin, if you knew anything like that. All I do know though is that the amount of land that's required for 128-bed nursing home or even 96 is about 5 acres. I don't believe that piece of property you're looking at has that amount of space, but I could be mistaken.
No, it wouldn't. No, you're right about that. No, I was just questioning whether that's where the multi-care would extend if necessary.
Yeah, I think it's a great point to saying, you know, what would you want to do? Would you want to extend it out there? Would they want to demolish the hospital and put an expansion here? Honestly, we haven't spent much time looking at that yet.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Metcalf. Try it again.
There we go. Thank you, Your Worship. Eric, you mentioned in your presentation that the #1 problem is to recruit and share physicians and professional staff. And in the final presentation, it says on the final page, to enable opportunities to recruit and retain healthcare staff in our community. It's an ongoing issue, and not just our community, but every community. And thoughts on a public healthcare system that has communities that are fighting to recruit municipal professionals, you know, having to entice them with free cottages or family vacations or monetary bonuses and benefits, luxury gifts or perks. Like, it's becoming a world of elites almost. If your community has enough money or valued assets, you'll have the advantage in maintaining a stable practitioner roster. What's your thoughts, and how do you think we change this pattern? Loaded question, I know.
I came out of retirement. I'm not too sure if it was to solve that problem, but you're absolutely right. It's our #1 issue that we have right now. You know, the profession right now is no longer as rewarding as maybe what it was before. The residents and the patients are sicker that we are looking after, and there's oftentimes shortages. So we need to create a better environment for people to work and to thrive. You know, and part of it will come back to the facility. I did a tour with one of the media reps And he went to one of the staff members when he was doing the tours, and he said, you know, what's wrong with this place? Why don't you like working here? And she said, do you realize that I had to plug in kettles to get hot water in order to clean the beds? I can't work in an environment like that. And so some of the physical infrastructure will create a better space. I think as well, though, that a number of our staff that are here are looking for opportunities to grow and make a larger contribution to the healthcare system. As a small hospital, 34 beds, there's limited opportunities. But if we can partner with other organizations, I think there could be some exciting things, such as developing a geriatrics focus and having some of our staff said, I'd like to lead a couple of new programs and maybe an adult day program, geriatric assessment centers, and creating some more vibe for people of saying I can make a difference in the healthcare system. For many people, it's not the money that they make. It's about how you have a career and a healthcare profession that allows you to make things better for your patients or residents.
Councillor English.
Thank you very much. I just have a comment. I'd really like to thank Eric and Kevin for all your hard work to date on this. I thought it was a very good presentation, and thank you very much. And I think it goes without saying, you certainly have the full support of all of council here as well.
Councillor Rosemary Kelleher McLennan.
No, I'm on. Thank you. I agree with all the comments, and I support what my colleagues here have spoke to regarding the hospital. Two quick things I was thinking about was, first off, the hospital is an anchor for our community and surrounding communities, and I know everybody is aware of this. The amount of people that we are seeing fluctuate to our area, relocating, young and old. There's a number of young persons too that are relocating to this area. So the catchment area is quite substantial when you look at who comes to the Campbellford Hospital and looks for help. And I'm sure that that's on the docket as far as recruiting and talking to the local areas outside of Trent Hills for support as well. The other thing I wanted to mention was, has there ever been any kind of a plan, a project set up where we go into the high schools in the area and speak to the students that are looking at graduating, perhaps around grade 12, about grade 11 before they make their final choice, and really portray the assets and the honors of becoming a healthcare worker, a doctor, a nurse, a specialist, a surgeon, whatever. I think there's perhaps a bit of an opportunity there to reach out to the young people and give them the opportunity to think about becoming one of our healthcare practitioners. And the other comments I had have already been covered, so thank you.
Kevin, do you have the history of working with the high school? I'm sorry, I don't. Are you aware of?
I don't know the specifics either, Eric. I do know that recently this came up actually, so it's a great suggestion. I know our board, at our last board meeting, actually was a suggestion from one of our newer board members. I do believe it has been done in the past. No doubt it certainly hasn't been done in the last couple of years, but it is on our radar. It's a great suggestion. Thanks for mentioning it, and definitely something that we have some retired healthcare professionals on our board. Nurses specifically, one who's a prof at Sir Sanford in Peterborough. And it's definitely something we're going to look to get going again here as we come out of the pandemic.
Yeah, the only other comment I would make is that I know that last year, even even with the pandemic, we had 63 students who came And my understanding is they're all the way through from co-ops to high school students, et cetera. But you're absolutely right. Getting people to experience the environment of working in the hospital or working at in our mental health programs, et cetera. It's a tremendous opportunity for people to see what a career in healthcare would be like. But I think we can do more to open our doors to allow people to see what a rewarding career this can be.
I will mention that, this notion of growing your own is, something that is important to the current board. And there's a great example of it in our chief nurse, Alicia English, who was born in the Campbellford Hospital and has great history in the community. Went away to school, went away and worked in the GTA for a number of years, developed her craft there. Now she's back here, hopefully permanently. And she's our chief nurse and just has a passion for the community and the hospital that you just can't fabricate, So that's something that we're well aware of right now. Our CFO, when we hired him, he lived in Campbellford. There were I was in on that hiring a couple of years ago, and there are other applicants, and we regarded the fact that he lived in Campbellford as a plus. So it's definitely on our radar, and it's something that it's not going to solve all the problems that Michael mentioned, obviously, but it's certainly one small advantage we have that we're going to try to leverage.
Thank you. Councillor Redden.
Well, thank you. Kevin just touched on a couple of things that I was going to mention, because the recruitment is one thing that I know very, very well, having been part of its initiation in 2001 and following it through on the board, on that board for a good 10, 12 years. Grow your own is the one thing that we worked with consistently, that if you couldn't convince your own individuals in your own community to see the importance of coming home and working, then it was difficult to recruit others. But I would say that the physician recruitment and retention program that has been utilized in this community for the past 20-some years has been one that's been recognized provincially and in some cases nationally for the work that the previous recruiter did. She's been recognized with awards and has also been able to mentor many recruiters throughout Ontario in terms of how successful she was and has been. And as you've noted, we have some locals that have grown up and come home to work in the hospital. And I think one of the big successes that has maybe diminished a bit was also the week where students were taken from the various universities, medical students, and brought to the community for a week to have them experience what life in a small rural community is. And just one final comment about the recruitment. I think that one of the biggest draws for a small community in terms of physicians, whether it's a residency or a locum or actually coming to practice, is the challenge of being here. And it isn't just sort of one single type of patient that you see day after day after day after day. It's the challenge of the opportunities to practice anything from delivering children in a merge to going out and dealing with farm accidents, looking after people with serious things that need to be helicoptered out, airlifted out to other places. But the challenge to a profession that in many cases, and maybe later in life we'll end up just taking one type of patient, but that's always been what our selling point is. When you come here, everything you've ever learned is going to be used.
Thanks, Kathy. Deputy Mayor Metcalf.
Thank you, Worship. Part of the package here has a letter of support that the mayor got together for himself and council, and I feel we need to endorse that officially. Is that something that we can do at this meeting? I'd like to make a motion that we endorse this letter of support to make it official from this council.
Seconded by Kathy.
Your Worship, we can move that, we can include it in the motion with respect to this item. We don't have a mover and seconder, so I'll come up with some wording for you. You do. My apologies, Deputy Mayor Metcalf and Councillor Redden.
Any further questions for Eric and Kevin? Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Obvious from the comments of council that you do have our support, and hopefully going forward, we can get things in motion. It would be nice to get the planning grant so that we can, I guess, so that you can forge on. So again, thank you very much, and we look forward to future presentations on your success. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Bob. Thanks for having us. Thanks for the letters of support and for endorsing that today. We really appreciate it. Makes a difference.
Thank you. There's one coming from the county too. We just have to be approved at the 16th. Okay, thank you. We are now, we have no presentations. One thing I meant to acknowledge when we started the meeting is that today is International Day of Women, and I wish everyone a great day. The ladies on with us. I know this morning when it came on TV that it was, I had many good thoughts of my mother and the other women in my life that have guided me to get to me where I am, and I'm telling you that it took a lot of work on their behalf. So I thank them, and I wish all of the ladies in our communities a very good day. Thank you. We're now at reports of municipal officers. Report PWK 2022-05, RFQ PWK GCS 2022-04, gravel crushing and stockpiling. Be resolved that staff report PWK 2022-05 from Neil Allenson, Manager of Roads and Urban Services, RFQ PWK GCS 2022-04, gravel crushing and stockpiling be received for information, and that the bid from Jim Weir Custom Crushing for RFQ PWK GCS 2022-04 for gravel crushing and stockpiling be accepted at their bid price of $2.38 per metric ton plus HST, and that the suppliers who submitted quotes be advised of council's decision under the Manager of Roads and Urban Services signature. That's what that's for. Could I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Rick, seconded by Jean. Any discussion? Jean? Whoop, hit your button, Jean.
Your Worship, I'm concerned that there's only two companies that participated in the tender process, and neither one of them were the contractor that did it last year. Is there any reason, is this the volume of the contract, is that a deterrent to getting more traffic coming to our business, or what? How was the contractor for last year? I thought that was a new local person that might have been back into the mix this year. But
well, Gene, again, it's an open request for proposal, and we only got to. I would say that our Manager of Roads and Urban Services, I don't think he's on the call this morning because he's on vacation, but we will ask when he returns. But we're seeing this more and more when we put out requests that we're only getting 1, 2, or 3 bidders, and I think it's just a matter of supply and demand as far as what's out there to do the jobs.
thank you.
Okay. So we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Report Finance 2022-002, read the Campbellford BIA budget. Be resolved that staff report Finance 2022-002 from Valerie Nesbitt, Director of Finance, Treasurer, read the 2022 Campbellford BIA budget be received for information, that the 2022 Campbellford BIA budget in the amount of $40,395 be approved, and that the tax levy amount of $40,000 for the Campbellford BIA be recovered from members within the CBIA boundary. Mover and seconder, Rose, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? Councillor McLennan?
I just want to say that the BIA has done a great job, I think, over the last number of years, trying to keep a budget in line, as well as trying to do as much as they can with the dollars they have to support and promote. So I just want to say thank you to them. It's not just meetings. They actually go out and do physical work themselves to try to help out. So I feel we have a pretty good board and some really good engaged people from our businesses in the downtown of Campbellford. So thank you.
Thank you. You hit your button, Rose. Any other questions? We have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have a report Finance 2022-003. Read the 21 Statement of Council Remuneration and Expenses. Be resolved that the staff report Finance 2022-003 from Valerie Nesbitt, Director of Finance Treasurer, read the 2021 Statement of Council Remuneration and Expenses be received for information. Could I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Kathy, seconded by Mike. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have a report Finance 2022-004, read the 2021 Annual Investment Report. Be resolved that staff report Finance 2022-004 from Valerie Nesbitt, Director of Finance Treasurer, read the 2021 Annual Investment Report be received for information. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Rose, seconded by Mike. Any just
Thank you, Worship. It's nice to see that there was a little bit of interest gained over this past year. I was expecting the worst when I opened up this report, but it's nice to see that there was a little bit. Question with the HABA, the Hastings and Area Betterment Association. It's under a GIC. Is there a limit on that GIC? Is there a mature date or anything that, or does it just continue to roll over in that GIC?
Through you, Your Worship. I believe that it is renewed every so often. I don't have the time frame in front of me, but because of the low value, we tend to just renew it when it comes up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. Thanks, Valerie. We have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We are now Finance 2022-005. Read the 2021 Development Charges Reserve Fund Annual Statement. Be resolved that staff report Finance 2022-005 from Valerie Nesbitt, Director of Finance Treasurer, read the 2021 Development Charges Reserve Fund Annual Statement be received for information. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Tully, Councillor English. Any discussion? Okay. Councillor Redden?
Yet, should I? There we go. Okay, thank you. No, just a question, Valerie. And I probably know the answer, but need refreshing. Say, for example, under the library with the closing balance that's there, what sort of things would that possibly be used for, if necessary? What would qualify under that?
Thank you. Through your Worship, I believe anything development related to expand or for studies related to the library. So I would have to go back to the development charges study, but at that point in time, I think it's really for expansion.
Okay, like physical expansion of the buildings, say, or some structural, or would it be more for programming?
I think it would be more capital construction related.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know whether this is Valerie or another administration. Is there any upcoming plans that are allocated for any of the development funds? I know we have some projects coming up in the future, and I guess there's some that would be able to use these development charges as capital expenses. A lot of times we're also looking for matching grants or something at the time, but is there anything that we know of that these development charges are going to be addressed or earmarked for?
Through you, Your Worship?
Yes.
Sorry. Yes, within the development charges study, there is a comprehensive listing of the various services within each of those categories that were identified that would be eligible for a portion to be funded through the development charges reserve fund. I can provide that to council, or if you want to refer back to the development charges study. One of those items in particular would be the Campbellford Recreation and Wellness Center. A portion of funds would be allocated for that. And those projects are brought forward at the time that the development charges study is under review. And so as an example, we look at that each year when we're doing road construction projects or bridge construction projects. And we ensure that anything that we have upcoming in our list of jobs, projects, if it's eligible for funding, we draw down those funds, or at least we make the departments aware of it in future years as well. So happy to provide the synopsis of that page to council if they would like.
Thanks, Valerie. Yeah, I'll circle back and take another look at that study. It's good information to know for the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. No more questions? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're now at Finance 2022-006, the 2020 Financial Indicator Review. Be resolved that staff report Finance 2022-006 from Valerie Nesbitt, Director of Finance Treasurer, re the 2020 Financial Indicator Review be received for information. Mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Rose. Seconded by Jean. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're at report CAO 2022-04. Read the Drinking Water Quality Management System 2021 Management Review Report. Be resolved that staff report CAO 2022-04 from Lynn Phillips, Chief Administrative Officer, read the Drinking Water Quality Management System 2021 Management Review Report be received for information. A mover and seconder, Councillor English. Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Councillor, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was just a bit for my knowledge. I don't know if Scott is on the call. So the question was, on October 12th, there was an adverse coliform test, and the 13th and the 15th, there was follow-up tests, and were all clear. I guess just for my knowledge, I was just interested in the type of situation that could cause this elevated individual incident, and then following two would be absolutely clear.
Sure, through you, Your Worship. Yeah, this was one of the test results that were discussed during the management review, and that's why it was captured here. It's not unusual, I think, especially because it's a blow-off, so it's an end of a line, so there can be an accumulation there. So that's why it's so important that it be tested again, and had the adverse result remained, then there would have been more of a situation. So given that there were samples taken afterwards that came back as normal, it was not considered to be a adverse test, ultimately. So, but there was an initial one which we do have to record.
Thank you. under 4.0 risk assessment, most of these would be considered long-term infrastructure renewal. Would they fall under the acceptance category of money set aside for development charge reserve fund? Is that these? I mean, it's definitely a capital expense.
Correct, through your worship. Well, in the case of the water side of things, we also have the rate study. So that did have a 10-year capital plan as well. So most of the project listed on this, if there is a plan to do it, would have already been captured during that 10-year plan. So the water rates going forward would reflect that. So on an annual basis, well, it says actually right here, study proposes $600,000 per year in capital. So that's earmarked annually through the rate study, and the various capital projects in it are required, are planned, and would be allocated from that.
One more. Thank you, Your Worship. So there was also an external audit. It noted strengths, so commitment to quality management, document records, communications, emergency testing, and internal audit process. And really, this is just a comment, and I keep continuing to make this comment with this department and Scott White and his team, all which make me very comfortable with the team that's in place to maintain our safe municipal drinking water system. So again, kudos to Scott and his team.
Thank you. Okay, we are at report CL, oh, sorry, I didn't, all in favor? Thank you. We're at report CLK 2022-02, Municipal Office Renovation, Award of RFP ADM OFU 2021-18, Municipal Office Furniture for the main floor. Be resolved that staff report CLK 2022-02 from Doug Irwin, Director of Legislative Services Clerk, read the Municipal Offices Renovation Award of RFP ADM OFU 2021-18, Municipal Office Furniture for the main floor be received for information, and that the bid from Brandt Office Supply Limited for RFP ADM OFU 2021-18 Municipal Officer Furniture main floor be accepted at their price of $131,541 plus HST. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Ken, seconded by Jean. Councillor Redden.
Thank you. I'm red. I've looked at the map, or the plans, I've looked at the pictures. I like to see and feel and see how the structure is. And I guess, it's a lot of money and a lot of change and a lot of work. And I know why it's being done. I think it needs to be done. Are we comfortable that it's going to resolve our current concerns? And a lot of it has to do with, COVID and the things it's brought forward. But are we comfortable it'll do what we want it to do? And is there anything else that has come to mind while we're going through this that might need to be addressed in terms of the housing of the offices, the information, and everything else? Because I want to get it right.
Through your worship to Councillor Redden, yes, part of the configuration in setting up this furniture was taking into consideration all of those separation barriers that are required from a COVID perspective. That is why all the cubicles have hard surface on the exterior to ensure cleaning. That is part of the reason for the glass, along with the ability to flow light through the space, particularly in the back section. In the front section, where our frontline staff will be located, the glass provides all the barriers, provides them the ability to see the counters for when we have individuals in. We have ensured, and part of our funding was through the COVID-19 Resilience Fund, and part of that required all those barriers, and we have done everything we can to set it up. While we were doing this, we also looked at the ergonomics, recognizing that this furniture should last us 20 years. That's why all of the desks will be height adjustable. They will have a height adjustable component. There will be enclosed storage for all of the desks. They have been standardized. We actually have more workstations on that floor than what we have had. We are utilizing our space better. We have taken into account all of our accessibility changes that we need to make. So the doorways are 38 inches into the bathrooms, the meeting rooms, and the offices. We are trying to ensure that all of our paths of travel are minimum of 42 inches in accordance with the building code. We have tried to address all of those factors in this.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Metcalf.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm liking the looks of it as well. My only question is, in the meeting rooms, we have tables that have glass separation. I know that that currently is something that we should have, and it's good. Is that something that can be removed down the road when we maybe don't need a piece of glass between us in a meeting room?
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor, yes. Those are actually plexiglass and they sit on top. They are not attached.
Excellent, thank you.
Councilor English?
Was I the winner?
You won.
Sorry about that. Through your Mr. Mayor, nothing to report.
Okay.
You took me out of the queue.
Sit for a second.
I disappeared.
Currently, Rosemary has the mic.
Okay.
Your worship, if Councillor McLennan leaves her mic alone and you turn yours off, she can start.
Okay, thank you. Just two things that managed to get on board with this last couple of weeks. On the 24th, it was great to see the number of councillors that showed up at the Healy Falls with David Piccini for the funding announcement in the generating station. It was a cold day, but for those of us that made it, we endured the cold and made Mr. Piccini realize how important this initiative and that was to us, and that we're grateful and support him. The other thing that I was involved in was later on the afternoon, the 24th, was the Campbell Seymour Community Foundation meeting, just looking at going forward with projects and whatnot for this year. And there'll be more information to come in the next couple of meetings. So thank you.
Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this point, I have nothing to report since our last meeting, and just wanted to compliment you on the letter from the county about the Ukraine. I thought that was very important and very timely. And I'm going to step out for a minute.
Thank you. Deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. A few things that I did over this last little bit. I attended a webinar put on by FCC, Farm Credit Corporation, and it was on farm plans now more than ever. It addressed futures of agriculture, farm succession, and farm planning, which is something that we have a lot of here in the municipality. The featured speaker was Professor Michael von Massen. He's from the University of Guelph, and he reiterated the importance of a plan. Not only a plan, I mean, this goes for agriculture, what he was talking about, but it can also go for many other industries and for municipalities as a whole. And a plan in an ever-changing food system is what he spoke about, and how it assists in navigating through change. So that plan is what helps you navigate change. Specific to agriculture, this one was, but it definitely relates to other areas. Also attended the Chamber Diversity Workshop, another excellent workshop. They offered 3 different time slots that the business community and members of the community could go to, and it spoke about diversity in business and diversity in the community. So another great workshop. The third webinar that I was able to attend was hosted by the Regional Tourism Organization 9, our neighboring tourism organization. It was on Indigenous Tourism 101, and the Indigenous Tourism Organization was one of the main speakers there, and it spoke about different events and tourism opportunities brought to them from the Indigenous tourism. Spoke about feast and food festivals and that sort of thing. One of the key components that I brought out of that webinar is just a saying that said, "There's no failure." Again, that it was in relation to partnerships with our Indigenous communities, but that also relates to many other parts of business, of personal, and of municipality. So there's no failing, just learning. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Redden.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for carrying on without me at the last council meeting. I certainly intended to be here, but I had the opportunity also, as I said earlier, to view the internal workings of the hospital for a brief period of time from the outside. And having someone in the hospital, especially when COVID is taking place and they're shut down, gives you an interesting insight to the situation that a lot of other people have been going through. So all is well, and I also can say that we have a good hospital when we need it up here. I think sometimes we can be a little too close to the situation and see things as being almost very dire straits in terms of what's happening, but it's a wonderful spot to have, and it's a great thing for us to continue working towards a new one. I also experienced my first Crow Valley Conservation Authority meeting in a long time as a member of the board, not the chair, and we spent a considerable amount of time on our transition plan, which you see today. I won't comment on it later, but it's like the other ones from the other authorities. It's taken a lot of time and effort and work on behalf of the staff, and I think our key purpose as the members of the authority is to be the back and forth between the authorities that we represent and make sure that we get it right, and we work on it. And finally, thank you for noting that it's the International Women's Day. I did see the same thing this morning, only I saw it in a way that really touched home and made me feel very proud to be and pleased to be a Canadian in a safe country at this point. The first thing I saw on television was a grandmother with a grandchild hoping to get on one of those trains to get out of the country and avoid what the Russians are doing to the families. There are a lot of brave women that are relocating their families while they're leaving their men behind to fight. There are quite a few brave women who are staying behind to fight as well. And I just hope that the leaders of this world can do something peacefully and make sure that those families can relocate. But today it's like, don't poke the bear and make grandma mad. I think there's a lot of angry grandmas out there, and some are doing what they can to ensure that we get peace at some point. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor English, again. Gene?
You got shoved off, did you? Yeah. You've been told. Mr. Mayor, I don't have too much to report, other than the exception that in our last council meeting, I neglected to comment about Trent Hills. Lower Trent had working on the transition plan, as Councillor Redden has referred to, and it drove home the fact that Queen's Park wants more done with less money to do it with. And it's just unbelievable, but I guess that's the role and there is discontent in the Lower Trent Board over that process, but anyway, it is what it is. I also did attend out at Healy Falls, and I think it's very important. At the time, we were fortunate to have two members, Todd Smith and David, in cabinet as being close to us, and we should massage that friendship as much as we can, both for our hospital and for our arena wellness center, because hopefully it continues to get the funding we expect. With that, I'll say goodbye.
Thank you. Councillor English.
Thank you. Just a reminder, all the council, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock CBC will be airing Still Standing, and it will be the Warkworth episode. So tune in. We'll be put on the map, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. You have to turn off your mic now.
Oh, you do and you don't, eh?
There. Thank you, everyone. Yes, and the indulgence of the people joining us with our new system. I don't have a lot other than I did attend at Healy Falls along with the other councilors, and yeah, it is good that we have two local members that are very active and support us, and we are making sure that we stay in contact and let them know what help we do need. I attended the Campbellford Seymour Community Foundation meeting. They're doing a great job, and it was good to see them get out their list of people that were receiving grants. Later this week, I will attend in person my first Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus meeting, where I will meet the other wardens from Eastern Ontario for the first time in, this will be my second year on the, if I hadn't had a second year, I never would have met any of them, because we never had one meeting in person for the first year. So I'm looking very forward to doing that on Thursday. And with that, we'll carry on to the consent agenda. Announcements of interest to the public. We have the blood donor event at St. John's United Church on Monday, May the 2nd at 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. We have correspondence from the Crow Valley Conservation Authority inventory of programs and services. We have correspondence from the Autonomy Conservation inventory of programs and services. And we have correspondence, the Lower Trent Conservation Programs of Services Inventory. We resolve that staff recommendations with respect to the consent agenda 9B to 9D be adopted as printed. A mover and seconder, Councillor English, Councillor Tully. Any questions? Councillor Deputy Mayor Metcalf.
Thank you, Worship. I've lost track. I'm going to talk about Orca. Am I good to do that right now? Excellent. Sorry. I know Councillor Redden and Councillor Brotney spoke about the other conservation authorities, and I sit on the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority. With the program, inventory of program and services that we've brought forward, where, as I believe most of us have or do sit on a conservation authority, there's three categories that they're bringing forward. The first is mandatory, the second is municipal requested, and the third is what they call other or a non-mandatory. The sources of funding are mostly fourfold municipal levy, self-generated grants, or private funding. That generally covers how we get funded through the Conservation Authority. An important component as a board member of the Conservation Authority is having environmental and conservation education and land stewardship. And unfortunately, that falls into category 3. And falling into category 3 means that municipalities have to agree to those programming, or the conservation authorities aren't able to fund them through other sources. I think it's important for me, and I hope that the rest of this council feels the same, that youth education and land stewardship should be supported for the future necessary budget recommendations in the conservation authorities, even though it falls into category 3. A lot of times there's not a whole large monetary value, but without the support of municipal councils, those programming will drop off of the conservation authorities. So something to consider in future budget proposals and around the tables of other conservation authorities, that I personally support those educational and stewardship practices of the conservation authorities, and even though they fall under a category 3 in this situation, I believe it's something that we should continue to support as a municipal council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redden.
Thank you. Just to follow up on what the deputy mayor is suggesting in terms of advocacy, in terms of the programs that we feel are very important. You appointed me as a member to sit on the advisory board, that Conservation Ontario Advisory Board, that is bringing together representatives across Ontario to take a look at what's taking place with these changes. And one of the things we're working on is sets of information that will go, some have gone to the federal members, but will go both to the provincial candidates during the upcoming election, as well as to the municipal candidates and out to the general public, to give them a sense of what it is that we're so immersed in when we go to our Conservation Authority meetings. And it's quite, I think it's quite common for some councils to be very opposed to the work the authorities do and see them as not important. And in some cases, that message comes out in the wrong way. It may be a particular project they're working on, but there is a sense out there that not all municipal councils really support the work of the conservation authorities. And while it just may be one part, it comes across as the whole thing. And that message is getting to some of the provincial members or provincial candidates, as well as some of the individuals in the community that are doing a lot of talking to their members during the election period. So there is going to be information coming out, and I think it's important that as we go forward, because we have 3 conservation authorities that we sit on with this council that come to our table. Many of them only see one, and that to them is the only one that really exists. And I think ours are very different in size and scope and in projects. So I'm going to be bringing some information shortly, and we're taking it across Ontario to all the various councils and the authorities that are out there. So thank you for your comments, because I think it's important that we do stress those important things that maybe are the alsos at the bottom. Some of those are what really make the authority important to the general public. The ability to go out and use the Seymour Conservation Authority and walk around it, or go out to Crow Bridge, or go to some of the cottages, the Migichi Cottage, and use it during the winter and have it available, and the same things with the work that Orca's doing with their education programs. So I think that's one of the challenges that we need to do, is to speak out and let people know the good stuff. Yes, it costs money, but it's there for a reason, and it's there to ensure that we still have waterways that are there, and places to visit, and recreation spots that are in good shape, so that when the rest of the world comes out to the country to see them, that there's something to show off. So I just wanted to make sure that hopefully my time is well spent in sitting in on these meetings, and we're learning a lot. and hope to have some information that we'll put in your hands that you can put out there to people that ask you, what is it the authority's doing? Or you can, when they start complaining, you can say, okay, this is what it does for you, and this is why it's important that we're paying for it with our tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelleher McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank both members of council, the deputy mayor and Councillor Redden, for sitting on the conservation boards, and Councillor English. No, sorry. English and Brant and Councillor Brantney. Sometimes we disconnect the dots, and I think that the programs that are being put forward by the conservation authorities are very, very, very important. And we forget that water touches everything in our lives. It touches not just for drinking, but it touches the environment, the nature. We talk about recreation. Again, water, if the water is polluted and not well looked after, you know, there can be diseases, et cetera, that can happen from even just swimming. So a lot of the programs that are in place and that they're trying to work with, and struggling, of course, with the budgets, et cetera, that have been cut from some levels of government, I think we need to applaud them and remind the public of how important not just drinking water, but all water is. Our farms, a lot of our farms, the cattle, the animals drink from streams, from rivers, etc. And all that needs to be looked at and taken care of to make sure that as humans, we remain healthy and we can rely on the water and the land for our food and to survive. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor English.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, some really good comments from Mike and Kathy and Rose. Totally agree, but something I think of quite often in regards to Lower Trent is the value that they have for our municipality. You know, I know that you see lots of comments when it comes to severances from Lower Trent. You might not always agree with some of those comments, I get that, but that's there to benefit not only the property owner, but us as a municipality as well. And quite often I think of that and the value that they add to our planning department. And, you know, I don't know how we would exist without them, quite frankly. So anyway, I just wanted to, just something I think of a lot when it comes to Lower Trent. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. At this time, we're taking a 5-minute break, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. 08 be received, and either that Jim Orr's appeal of council's decision with respect to report planning 2022-08 be granted, that motion number THC-2022- dash 22 dash, I'll get this right on the third try, I promise, that motion number THC-22-0222-15 be rescinded. Ken and Heffernan and Jim Orr be advised of council's decision under the Director of Planning and Development signature, and the staff bring forward a report with respect to the unassumed road allowance located between concession 9 and concession 10, part of lots 13, 14, and 15 from former township of Percy, or that Jim Orr's appeal of council's decision with respect to report planning -2022-08 be denied, and that staff proceed with motion number THC-22-0222-15, and that Jim Orr be advised of council's decision under the Director of Planning and Development signature. Does someone wish to bring forward either or? Put it on the floor?
You can discuss it before you go there if you want, Your Worship.
Well, would you? Oh, sorry. I'm looking and not looking at this, sorry. Councillor Redden.
Thank you. Mine's just a procedural question. Perhaps the clerk can answer this. It's around our procedures for a motion of reconsideration. Is this such? I know we had one at one point, and is rescinding the same as reconsideration? So if you could refresh my memory on that?
Rescinding and reconsideration, I would say, are separate items. Council made a decision at the February 22nd meeting. The motion or the draft motion with the either or that the mayor has presented is either to rescind that decision or to retain that decision. Reconsideration would be where council wants to look at it again and possibly change its mind, or somebody wants to change its vote. They're really close. Yeah. Reconsideration would be more, there are parameters in our procedural bylaw. Reconsideration, I don't believe our procedural bylaw allows for reconsideration after action has been taken. It's typically requested by the member of council, and it is at the meeting immediately following the decision generally, or in the instance, specifically when a member is not present at the meeting the decision is made, then that member may ask for reconsideration at the following meeting. Otherwise, it needs to occur prior to action being taken, I believe is how our procedural bylaw is written.
Thank you, Your Worship. My decision will not change. I asked about access to property, and the only property without access would be the applicants, Ken and Ann Heffernan. This application's been open since July of 2021. There's been time for the parties to come to agreement of use of this road allowance. No consensus of agreement was made. As noted by our municipal solicitor, John Ewart, Section 34.1 only requirement is that a bylaw must be passed by the municipal council prior to authorizing the stop-up, close, and conveying of a highway or any portion thereof prior to the sale or transfer occurring. The Municipal Act of 2006 requirement to offer a portion of a public highway to abutting property owners was removed from the Act. Section 9, 10, and 11 of the Act allows for a municipal council to decide in its sole discretion as to when and whom any portion of a public highway will be conveyed. There is no obligation under the Municipal Act 2001 to convey any portion of a highway which is stopped up and closed to an abutting landowner. And Section 30 and 34(1) of the Municipal Act serves to place the decision as to who will be the transferee of any highway property to be stopped up, closed, and conveyed in accordance with the provision of the Act. My decision of the matter of February 22nd does not change, and I move to appeal or to approve a denial. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Brahimi.
Did I understand that the previous speaker is speaking for the either?
To deny the appeal.
Okay, yeah. Well, I support. I'm on. Mr. Mayor, my comments will follow my feelings that I spoke at the meeting. I realize this has got to be a very sensitive personal issue between these two landowners. But having said that, if the names were flipped, I would vote the same way. I think we made the right decision, the correct decision. Lots of time for notice, 6, 7, 8 months. The one property owner has an adjoining farm. I see no reason why he can't traverse from one farm to the other without using the road as a transfer. And I guess I just support the motion as we put forward on the 22nd.
So would you second the motion that
I would.
of the deputy mayor?
I would.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Motion is to deny the appeal. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're now at bylaws. Be resolved that bylaw number 2022-013, bylaw number 2022-014, bylaw number 2022-021 be read a first, second, and third time passed, properly signed and sealed by the clerk and mayor. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Rose, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. We have no notice of motions. We have no closed session. We're at the confirmation bylaw. Be resolved that bylaw number 2022-022, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Tuesday, March the 8th, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, and properly signed and sealed by the clerk and mayor. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Kathy, seconded by Ken. All in favor? That's carried. A motion to adjourn. Councillor English, Councillor Rosemary Kelleher McLennan. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.